Thank you for joining us today on the Sisterhood Leadership Podcast with Dianne Wilson, recorded live from Orange County, California. If you'd like to subscribe, click on the link below, diannewilson.com, and we'll see you next week.
Hi, I'm Dianne Wilson. Welcome to our brand new Sisterhood Leadership Podcast. We've been meeting as a sisterhood for over 10 years, and recently we were talking amongst ourselves as leaders on what we could do in this very different season and very different era in the life of our church. 10 years ago, most of the women in our sisterhood were either not married yet, no kids, or they had grown kids and time. So we were able to meet every Friday morning. Well, recently I was looking at how many people were able to come on a Friday morning and how many weren't. And it just seemed like crazy for us to not make some changes so that we could reach more women and help more women develop in their leadership. So we're excited about this new leadership podcast, including different leaders every single week. We're having a conversation. There's going to be questions asked and answered. And my heart is to make everything practical, because leadership has got to apply to our real life, not just in theory. And so thanks for joining us. And we really hope that you enjoy this month as we focus on, of course, our Bible, which we love. We call it the Bible Book Club. And Bible in a year is amazing. This is my 17th year around the block. And of course, this month we're focusing on one of my resources, It's Time, and this is a leadership book. So thanks again for being with us and hope you enjoy. So glad to be here today for our Sisterhood Leadership video podcast. And I want to introduce to you two amazing women who have been in my life as their leader for over 10 years. Mm-hmm. This is Lacy and this is Danee. Yeah, awesome. And when I think of each of you, I don't actually put you together as friends, which is interesting, because we're going to talk about how to do, sisterhood for real, because no one wants to do sisterhood that's not real. First time I met Lacy, it was quick, and then I just observed her for a long time, and she was the very consistent church attender who just always looked like she was skeptical of the world, and that's exactly this beautiful young girl. And first time I met Danee was at Sisterhood, and I'd seen Danee, and she's like, so you're so vivacious, but you had never vivacious yourself into my life, if that makes sense. I know that that's not a thing, but you had this beautiful personality. But I could also see that there were a number of women and young girls your age who were not necessarily being as inclusive as they could be. Now, you would not have even recognised that probably, because they were such new friends and lovely people. I saw it a mile away, and I actually made sure that there was room for you in this group of girls that I was pastoring. And I know that was like a new thing, because you were like a new girl. I just really love what you brought and that you have continued to bring. So a number of the girls who, were part of that group a long time ago have moved on and done other things, and they've moved into state, and that's awesome. But to have to actually watch your life and watch how you've grown, both of you, because you're corporate, and now you're also, you work at like a proper job, but you met in university. So now I don't know who's going to, this is going to be a free-for-all, because who's going to go first, you two? Tell me the story of hate turns to love when it comes to sisterhood.
Well, so Lacy and I went to college together, as well as her husband, Jeff. We all went to school, and I was friends with Jeff, and we had met, and I was not the nicest person in college. I was your typical college girl, was not very kind to other women.
I can't imagine. But...
And I don't remember why or what, but something about you rubbed me the wrong way. And I didn't like you, and then I remember asking your husband, actually, he reminded me recently, because it's funny now, because I'm your biggest fan of you and Jeff and your whole family, but he told me, in his Starbucks, I asked him why he was dating you. No, don't do that. And there was people in our world that kind of just kept egging on this not liking thing. I think we both
Now, were you both Christians at the time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean,
yeah.
Just
Yeah.
kidding.
Yeah.
Okay, keep talking.
At Christian University.
Oh.
And it really, when there's two people with big personalities who are confident and know who they are, it's natural that, I know I'm a love-hate person. Like, you either love me or you find me challenging, and I get that about myself, and I try to, like, fluff the other side, but, at some point it is what it is. And Danee, you are confident, you are beautiful, you know who you are, and so we were naturally going to clash at a time when we were 18 and thought we both knew. We thought we knew everything, and then really it was, we were consistent in this house for, we've been here for 10 and a half, 11 years, and we were consistent here, we were consistent in sisterhood, and really, Pastor Val, you made no room for girls to act like that, and if we were going to listen, learn, and choose to apply that to our life, that meant that we had to get to a place where we were just going to look at each other and be like, well, this is really silly, and that's essentially what happened.
I remember
Say that one more time, because it's actually
it was
playground. It's playground.
Well, I remember the
Totally.
the first moment we actually
Yeah.
talked, and we're like, oh, we're actually a lot alike, and then like we actually
Right.
got along really well. It was
Right.
on the beach.
Yes.
We were in Newport.
Yeah.
It was before Memorial Day,
Yeah.
but I don't know why we were there with friends, and they said you should talk, like you guys need to, and I was like, fine. So we're all in a group and we're talking, and next thing you know, an hour later, and everybody's dwindled, and it was just like we're just talking, and I think we both decided to be grown-ups, and
I got to
friends.
say, I love this concept of talking, because who does that anymore?
Right.
nobody does.
Don't have to. Well, it's an option. It's one piece of communication that we can do, but there are other forms that are efficient, not effective necessarily, but the art of sitting down and actually having a conversation where you've got to look someone in the eye and you've got to get over the awkward stuff, but then you don't trade that in for anything. I was thinking about you guys this morning, thinking you have gone so far in your friendship. I can't imagine a time in the future when you're not just going to be as lovely as you are to each other now. Like, I've got friends that I've been close friends with for over 30 years, and you get to a stage and it's like it doesn't, nothing's going to make that go away because you're both committed to the same things, and it's not being the same person, it's just knowing that you got over that hurdle and that you've decided to be grown-ups, which means you don't nitpick over things that you don't like. You choose your battles. You are each other's biggest fans.
Yes.
I really love
So
that.
true.
So here is it's time, and this is Danee's. I'm like, is this your actual? I can see it's got makeup.
We've
on
done
it.
some
Like,
this time.
It's
what? Look at the notes. I love you. Yes, this double trouble. Ooh, double trouble.
I'm in double trouble.
That's really okay, girls. Ask me a question that is going to help anyone watching, either our Newport Sisterhood women or anyone else that's tuning in. Because what is a question that you've got that helped you when it was answered in leadership that can help other people?
I would just ask, and I kind of feel like I know the answer because I've lived it with you, but to help others, and really it's how did you intentionally set out to foster healthy female relationships, knowing that we can be the worst of the worst to each other, because that's like entering literally a cat fight, but coming out with strength and coming out with women who champion each other. So you took girls to women. How did you intentionally set out and do that and then foster these relationships?
Such a great question. Okay, so I think for me, what came to mind first when you posed the question is having experienced non-healthy relationships in a group setting where everyone knows, no one's talking about it. These are the overly liked girls, and these are the hanger-oners, and there's all these cliques. I think because I don't like cliques, and I know like Jesus is the most inclusive, and so there is no room for us to have this exclusive. These are the gifted ones. These are the ones who do what I call super serving, because they They are people, they're addicted to people pleasing, and all they want to do is overserve to get closer to the leader, and they actually hurt people on the way. So all of that stuff, we dealt with all of it. The other thing is, you know, hanging out with people that are just like you. Now the fact that you guys like each other now because you realise it's just like you, that's good. But you know, not everyone is cool, whatever cool means. I don't know. For the longest time, we got known as the hipster church, and and people coming into our church saying, there is not one ugly person in this place. Everyone is beautiful, and I'm like, oh, are they? I don't know. But for some people, that is a point of exclusivity because they look and they say, I don't fit in here. So I think for me, it was making sure it didn't matter how people looked, didn't matter where they were up to, whether they were reading their Bible or not, because nothing is worse than if you're actually on a journey to learn and somebody says, well, why haven't you read the whole Bible? It's like, okay, that's a very personal question in front of a lot of people. I'm trying, you know. I just think forced friendship is always really important too. So if we're going to go and do an excursion, let's just all mix up the carload, you know.
Have a good time.
I don't know if I answered that properly, but my commitment is probably not dissimilar to what my commitment has been in my own home, making sure that, you know, rooms don't become hideouts, and that there is that community of family where we do like high tolerance, low expectation, and we just chill. So what's your question?
That one, I mean, that was so good. I'm like, I don't want to answer, but ask mine. I think mine had to do with, kind of piggybacked off of Lacy's, in the sense of one thing you taught me so well was how to really incorporate deference into relationship and always to defer, and how sometimes you can't handle what people are going to do to you, and you can honestly just almost like give them the benefit of the doubt. But is there anything else that you found in your relationships other than deference that has helped move it forward after you've done that so many times and you just feel like you're consistently walking in that and not seeing movement?
I love that word, deference, and I remember, I don't know when it was, but I remember actually bringing the message on deference, because it was a word that some people hadn't actually, they might have heard it, but they had not heard it in a context of putting somebody else first.
That's me, I did.
So I love, okay, so what does Jesus say? You know, he who wants to be the greatest leader is got to be the greatest server. And so it's completely biblical. She's a resident theologian. So I'm just, the Bible does say, you know, if you want to be fantastic, feel free to be the least, you know, in line. And it's never hurt me to do it. Now, have people hurt me in the process of doing it? 1, 2, why did 70 times 7? Yeah, of course, you're going to get hurt. But be the person who chooses deference because you get to sleep at night. Because you're just doing the right thing consistently, and you're teaching anyone in your life by your example that it's actually the best way. Here's the thing, if everything's going well all the time, people don't, how can they learn from your life? When all the stuff hits the fan and you're still lovely, now there is a moment where we can actually help people. So use it all. You know, God uses everything. He doesn't bring us bad stuff, but he uses everything. And I love that deference, because it's a posture of humility, a posture of servant leadership, and it's actually a massive strength to be able to do it, because you get to do it or not. It's a free will thing.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, so you got married really young.
Yeah.
And you're not married.
Single.
Right. So how's that all work? How have you stayed like friends when you know, because sometimes people get married and then they cut all their friends off, and it's like, oh.
Well, I
That
can
sounds
say
no
for
fun.
her, it's because her life isn't defined by her marriage.
Yeah.
It's an asset, and she thinks her husband, I mean, I just observing it, because I have had friends who, like, they get married and that's all they have. And those are difficult people to be friends with.
No kidding.
But then you have friends who it's like, they get along and it makes sense, and they're a partnership, and you and Jeff equally are friends, and you are champions of not just each other, other people. So it makes it really...
Yeah, you've always been really, you guys have always been really amazing and magnets for like, not just single people, but like everyone, like older people. I think it's also the relationship you got with your mum and dad. You too, you've got a great relationship with your mum and dad, and the whole, like, everyone's in our church, which is amazing. Alrighty, so if you were to say one thing, each of you, just to share with people, one thing that you have learnt in 10 years that you didn't know 10 years ago that you live by now, what is that one thing?
You know, I thought about it when we were talking about, you know, just when we decided to just look at each other and say this is silly, was that we both felt like, wow, we wasted so much time. And I've learned that whether it's a big thing or a little thing, just have the conversation early. Whatever it is, if it's happening, let's just address it, and let's just whether that's a relational thing or that's something you've noticed about someone, or if it's something you want to say to someone, just doing it timely and quickly, and not leaving it, because when you leave it is when things can go awry. And the other piece is you can miss out on 5 years. We missed out on 5 years of friendship that we could have had, and we've made up for it. Don't worry. Like
we even threw a birthday party together.
We did. We had a joint birthday party. And
We
that was for us was a big deal to celebrate your your day with someone else that for years it wasn't even a thought.
Yeah.
But I think just making sure that if you want to say it, and obviously like it's not just say it, but like just if it's something that is intentional and it needs to be handled, just do it timely, because we don't have a lot of time.
I love that.
And it's important because you can miss out on so much that you wouldn't. Yeah, you could just miss out on so much.
Wow, the art of conversation. I think we need to do something on that.
Yeah,
Let's do that next time. Yeah, okay, because the approach, the timeliness, the approach, the content, you know, compassion, empathy, all those ingredients, because otherwise it's just one big like confrontation.
Yeah, right.
So how to do it constructively,
Yeah.
so you don't lose the person. There's a biblical pattern for that, and I think we should talk about that another time.
Well, we had to be willing to both want the same thing, and I think we were both mature enough because we'd been hearing the same messages at the same time, and so it actually forced us to grow up and to make the right decision.
Awesome. So what's your one thought?
I think mine is choose right, like know right and choose right. And you said that so many times, like choose it and do it. And I think so often we make life really complicated, and it's actually not that complicated when you really get down to it, like know right, choose right, and then do it. And that has rolled over into all areas of my life, and it has revolutionized me with work, with family, with friends, like in church life, in every way. And it's always growing and always learning, and there's times where it hasn't been the easiest, but I think that's been the one thing that overarching on my life, that and read your Bible.
That's good.
That has changed my life.
Bible and do what it says.
Like, I remember there was one time all the girls were together, and you had asked us, you're like, okay, who's behind the Bible reading? But everybody, you had us all put our heads down first, and you did too. And who's behind? And I remember I peeked. Because I wanted to see if you were looking. And you weren't. You didn't. You weren't looking. I didn't look at anybody else. I looked at you. You weren't looking. And then you got up.
I remember what it felt when somebody said that to me at Bible college. Who has read the whole Bible? And I was like, that's why I'm here. I don't even know how to read the Bible.
Well, I loved it. Because I remember what you said later. You said basically like, that this has nothing to do with you being accountable to me.
Yep.
It's like being accountable to God, and because you want to know Him. It's not to check it off of a list. It's to get to know Him. And it totally like changed my life. So it's like know right, do right, and read your Bible.
That's really awesome. Okay, well,
good.
We're out of time for today. I mean, actually trying to do this was interesting, because when I asked you girls, can I do this interview with you, and you were like asking how to prepare, and I said, well, I'm sure you can both talk. So I'd love to come back another time with Lacy and another time with Danee, because we've got lots of stories and lots of pearls of stories. And listen, we have not arrived. We're still on this journey, and I just want to tell you girls, I thank God for you, because you are the absolute precious reap of lots of sowing for many years, and I'm incredibly proud of who you are, and I love you. So we'll see you next week.
Thank you for joining us today on the Sistered Leadership Podcast with Dianne Wilson, recorded live from Orange County, California. If you'd like to subscribe, click on the link below, diannewilson.com, and we'll see you next week.